Tonight, we've got a great program for you. We're going to be talking about math, and we're going to work some math problems. This is going to be fun. You know, math is a harsh word. I mean, really what we're talking about is arithmetic. There's no calculus. There's no trigonometry. There's very little algebra, if any. You know, it's just, if you could do multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition, that's math. And we're going to go through a dozen questions tonight and work them together. Give you some of the things to look out for and answer any questions you have. Please, join, ask questions. This is really important. I know a lot of you are a little bit afraid of math. So you don't do a lot of math and you haven't done a lot of math, and all of a sudden you're going to be put in a position where you're going to have to do some math on the test, and you're going to be okay, especially if you pay attention tonight, write down some formulas and work the problems with us. We're going to work these problems together, and you're going to feel a lot better about it. But ask any questions you want, buddy. And of course, you can always get a hold of Dan and I. You know, we've given you our numbers a lot of the times, but if you don't have mine, it's 801-556-8000. That's 801-556-8000. Operators are standing by, which is me. I answer the phone, okay? If I don't answer the phone, you know that I'm busy. But I'd love to help you. If you have individual questions, just call, reach out. You know, one of you passed his test, what was it, last week, I think, wasn't it, Dan? Anyway, passed his test last week. He got real nervous and called me and said, can you please help me? And I absolutely, so I drove up through a snowstorm all the way up to Ogden and met him up there and spent the whole day with him, cramming him for the test. And he went in the next day and passed flying colors. So I know some of you think, well, I wouldn't want to impose. You're not imposing if I invite you to come and call. And Dan's available, 24/7, 3 o'clock in the morning. Give Dan a call on his private secret cell phone number, right, Dan?
That's right.
Maybe not. Anyway, let's jump right in. We've got a lot to talk about math. So number one, okay. Here's a person named M. Wasn't that James Bond's boss? Anyway, M has a home that appraised for a value of $380,000, okay? If the assessment rate is 60% and the tax rate is 7 mils, what will the tax bill be at the end of the year? Okay, first of all, as we look through the questions, you have to read the question and you have to identify what it is they're looking for. What do they want to know in this question? Then you have to identify the relevant information, calculate each step, and then highlight the right answer. Okay, so let's kind of walk through that. Looking at our answers, what are we going for? A, B, and C, D, they're all numbers, right? So we have to come up with a number, not a percentage. So we're looking to manipulate the numbers they give us in order to come up with the number they're looking for. And the number they want to know is, what is it we're looking for? We're looking for the amount of tax they're going to have to pay at the end of the year. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then we have to look at the relevant information. Okay, appraised value 380, assessed value 60%. Now, what happens here is in our state, and a number of states do this, but let me give you an example with Park City. Okay, politicians in our state who create laws and pass laws and whatnot know that there's more people that are voting that own properties than business people, okay, who own buildings and warehouses and whatnot. So what they do is they have a special tax advantage given to residential property owners because they're the voters. Most of them are there, okay? And so what they say is, look, we love you people, okay? And so what we're going to do is, for some classifications of property, the assessed value is going to be the same as the actual appraised value. But in some cases, meaning if it's a residential property, okay, that you're living in, then what happens is that we're going to give you a special discount, and the discount's 40%. So in other words, we have what it's worth, which is $360,000, but the assessed value is only 60% of the appraised value. Okay, so you get a break. Okay, now what if you have a rental house in Park City, and the tenant that's by rental, I mean that the tenant's living there on a year lease or 6-month lease. It's not a nightly rental. It's not an Airbnb, because an Airbnb looks a whole lot like a business. So an Airbnb in Park City, they're going to tax you at the full appraised value. But if it's a renter that's living there, because they also vote, and they're going to live there for a year on a year or 2-year lease or 5-year lease, whatever it is, then they get the 40% discount, which means they're only going to be taxed by the assessment rate of 60%. Okay, what if it's a warehouse or a restaurant building or an office building? No tax break for you, buddy. Now, what if it's a church building? Oh, well, we'll let you ride free there. I mean, so I guess you could declare yourself a church, and but anyway, the point is there's a formula we need to use, and we'll be looking at that in just a moment. So we know the appraised value is important. We know that the assessment rate 60% is important. And what about the tax rate is 7 mils? Okay. Please write this down in your notes. What is a mil? A mil is 0.001. 1 mil, 0.001. Okay, it's like 1/1000th. Okay, I mean, if it was 0.01, that'd be a penny. That's 1/100th of a dollar. But if it's 0.001, so what would 7 mils be? Stacy, what would 7 mils be? The hush falls over the crowd. 0.007. Okay, that's important to know. Now, what's 23 mils? 0.023. Okay, so single digit 0.00, that's single digit, double digit 0.0, and then the double digit. Okay, that's critical. You have to know what a mil is, 0.001. First step on that. Okay, so looking this over, let's look at our answers. Where are our answers? Okay.
So you want to be
let's go to our worksheet. Can we do that? Or because we don't have A, B, and C and D down here on the screen. I don't see it anywhere. Right.
So trying to find the tax bill.
Okay. We're trying to find what is your tax bill going to be. Okay. And of course, we need to know what the appraised value is. The appraised value was $380,000. Could highlight that. Or okay. Oh, here's our formula. And this is a formula you need to know. Appraised value, which was $380,000, right, times the assessment rate, which is 60%, would equal the assessed value. And then we multiply that by the tax rate, which is the mill levy, which they gave us at 0.007. Okay, so let's put the numbers in and see what happens. Okay, now if you're looking at, okay, we got 380,000, that was the appraised value. Assessment rate was 60%. Now, you see the 60% in the parentheses here, and the percent sign has 2 zeros. That tells you if you want to convert a percentage to a decimal equivalent, you move it over from the right, you move it over 2 spaces, because there's 2 zeros in a percent sign. So it'll go 1, 2, 0.0 or 0.60. 0.60, same thing, 60%. What if it was 150%? Same thing. You move it over 2 zeros, so it'd be 1.50. Okay. And if it was just 6%, it'd be 0.06. Okay. So these are very simple things, I know, but maybe it's been a long time since you've done math. So we've got, or arithmetic, we've got 380,000 times the assessed value, or times the assessment rate, which gives us the assessed value. And remember, this is just a political thing. Sometimes they move it up, sometimes they move it down. It depends on if the populace is carrying torches and whatnot. Maybe we'll get a little better, a better break. Maybe they're only going to assess it 50% and whatnot. Now, some states like California, if you're a certain age, they lock the value in, and so, as long as you don't leave your house, you can live there 30, 40 years. And so they have a little different system there, but this is Utah system. Okay, so that gives us our assessed value. That's what you're going to be taxed on. So what was our tax rate? Well, looking back at the question again, it was 7 mils. So 7 mils is 0.007. Hey, and now we just multiply the 2,000 or 228,000 times 7. Our tax bill is $1,596, which if we had the answers, it would be answer number B. Okay. Questions on this? Comments? Okay, we're going to do another.
I have a quick question.
Good.
What is a mill? Like what is
A
it?
mill,
Like
mill levies. Okay, there's two ways they can increase your taxes. One of them is by lowering the assessment rate, or lowering the discount. So instead of giving you 40% off, they only give you 35% off. So now the new assessment rate is 65%, but they didn't raise the mill levy. Oh, the mill levy stayed exactly the same. Okay, so they can mess with that. Now, another thing they can mess, of course, is they can send their property assessors out, and they can come up with higher values. In Utah, man, I'm sure they're adding more people at the county assessor's office because values have just exploded, 18% or more in the last, 10 months anyway. So what happens is if they can get those higher values plugged into the system, they're going to collect more taxes that way. But the mill levy is, we vote that in, oh, we need new libraries, or we need another park, or we need something else. And so we need more money for the schools. And so, well, let's just vote in, this, and it's only going to be 3 mills, so it just increases that rate. So the mill rates can go up or down. The assessed value could go up, probably not down unless we have a crash. So what happens is they all calculate in. But a mill is 0.001. That's a mill. So if your tax rate is if your tax rate is 23 mils, it's going to be 0.023. If it's 7 mils, 0.007. Okay. Great question, because if you don't know what a mill is, you can't work the problem. Okay. Got it? No, nothing mysterious.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you for asking. Excellent. Now let's look at another tax problem, or another rate. Okay, now this one's backwards. Okay. In other words, our first one, we were solving for how much will a tax bill be. And this one, and I love this because you're working it backwards, but it shouldn't mess you up, because, when we had the appraised value times the assessment rate equal the assessed value times the tax rate equal the tax due, we went from top to bottom. That was multiplication. Well, this one, if you're looking at that same formula, we're working it backwards. They're giving us the tax. See, our last problem, we came up with the tax due, tax bill, $1,596. Well, this one, they're giving you that. It's $675. That's what they're paying. Okay. So the tax rate is 2 mils. Now, seeing that as 2 mils, what is the number we use, the series of numbers we need to run that? 0.002, because we know a 1 mil is 0.001, so 2 mils 0.002. See that? Last problem was 0.007 because it was 7 mils. Assessment rate is 75%. No, not much of a discount in that. And what is the appraised value of the property? Okay, so what we're solving for, what we're trying to figure out is what is the appraised value. Now, so we're going to have to, let's pull up our formula again, and let's just work it backwards. Now, this formula we've already inverted, okay, because they're giving us the tax rate, or the tax due, which is $675. So what we've done with this formula over the last one, we just turned it upside down. So instead of multiplication, when it's upside down like this, you do division. Okay. Now, a couple of ways you could do this. You could try to remember both formulas, but Dan, can we click back to the other formula, please? But for me, the way I remember this formula is, well, especially if you're a poker player, this is a full house. We got 3 aces over 10s. Okay, ace, 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 10, 10. Okay, so but you start with the appraised value. That's what the assessors are going to come out and, well, we think it's worth this much money. And you can argue that, you can go in and challenge them. It's not going to do you any good right now because prices have been going up so rapidly. But in a down market, which we used to have every 8 years or so, we haven't had one in a long time, but in a down market, what happens is prices are falling. You can go in and argue, well, that last year's assessment rate was too high. And you can take appraisals in with you, or an appraisal, and argue that you're over assessing me, or you screwed it up somehow. I mean, it's more common. There was one year I did 500 challenges for different property owners. I wanted to endear them so they would think of me as their real estate professional. Okay, and so we didn't charge much. We only charged like $50, but we went in and challenged your taxes. And to tell you the truth, the first year we did it, we didn't win one of them, but we took up about a month of their time. So the second year we went in, we won every one because they didn't want us around that long. So what happened was they lowered them all, the second year, but the first year it was kind of interesting. And then of course you develop a relationship with those people because, your relationships with property owners is a very good thing. But what we were arguing was you overappraised the property. Okay, which is beyond the scope of what we're looking at here. But the appraised value is set by the county assessor's office. The assessment rate is set by the legislature. Okay, and the tax rate is also set by elected officials on a city, state, and a city, county, and state level. Okay, so they add all those up. Some cities have their own little mill levy for this or that, but it was voted in by the voters in that area, and that will give us the taxes due. So if you go from the top to the bottom, remembering full house, if you're a poker player, that'll help. But this one, we're going from the bottom up. And so you go from the bottom up, we have to divide. We have to divide twice, not multiply twice. Okay. What we've done here is we've just turned it around. Same thing, only, it reads a little different. But the tax due they gave us was how much, guys? $675. That was the number they gave us in the problem, right? And they gave us the mill levy too. They said it was 2 mills. So by just reading the question and understanding the direction you're going in, you just insert the mill levy. Okay, 0.002. Okay. And then you have the assessed value, which you divide. You divide the one on the top by the one below it, and that gives you our assessed value, which is 337.5. Okay. Now, we now need to know what the assessment rate was, which they gave us in the problem. They said it was 75%, but we convert that to the decimal equivalent by moving it over 1, 2 places, the little percentage sign, 1, 2. And once again, we what? Divide. And so that gives us the appraised value of 450, which in this particular problem was answer D. Now, Dan's going to put it in a link to all these formulas, so you can link in and at the link that Dan gives you, and you can download these formulas. But you need to have a familiarization with these formulas. Now, these are the only 2 tax problems that are going to work. But I really like the fact that we work one from the top down and the other from the bottom up. And of course, working it from the bottom up, we just inverted the formula. So what's important here? You got to know what a mill is, 0.001. So if they give you 7 mills, 2 mills, 7.5 mills, 25 mills, you know how to convert that to decimal equivalent. And the percentage they give you is going to have to be converted to a decimal equivalent as well in order to work this problem. Okay, how do you feel? Well, we're going to move on to cap rates now. Okay, cap rate, I've seen on the test, I've seen it called cap rate, I've seen it called capitalization rate. More often than not, you're going to see it as rate of return. And these are all investment measures. It's the same measure, it's the same formula. but it's a way of taking the annual net income of a property and and putting a cap rate on that in order to determine what the approximate value of that property is. And where do cap rates come from? They come from the marketplace. It's important in your career that you make friendships. And one of the people that you should, the one category people you need to make friendships with are appraisers. Now, these are nice people. They don't wear, they're not authoritative, jackbooted Nazis. They're not. These are really nice people, and they, more often than not, they were hush puppies or whatever. But they're just really nice people. They're down to earth people. Okay, and what they're doing is an appraiser is a good person to befriend, because you can call them and say, I'm listing a fourplex. What's a typical cap rate on fourplexes these days? And I say, well, the last 3 that I've appraised, came in at about, 6.5 or 7.5. Okay. And that's what investors are getting, in this market. If they're getting high cap rates, they're paying lower prices. And in our market, prices are high. So do you think they're getting high cap rates or low cap rates? No, they're getting low cap rates. However, rents are high. So that will affect it as well. Okay, because what we're looking at cap rate, we're looking at 2 qualifiers. One, income, in regards to income. One is on the income, it's always an annual income. Annual. It's annual income. So what are devious exam writers going to give you? Quarterly and monthly incomes, which you need to what? Annualize. See, most of the questions that you see on the math test, math questions on the test you're going to have to manipulate the figures they give you a little bit in order to get the figures you need to work the problem. And this one is no different, because in this one, it says they currently earn $10,000 per what? Per month. So what do you think you have to do to that? I just told you it has to be what? Annual. Why? Because the cap rate your appraiser friend gives you is an annual percentage rate. This is what it's over a course of a year. Okay. So real important. And you know what? You got to take these guys to lunch. Now, you don't have to take them to Brio or anything. You can take them to, Wendy's or whatever. That's they because they're used to eating there anyway. But you ought to befriend an appraiser, because they're going to be extremely helpful to you. Call them, you can ask them, what's the gross rent multiplier? What's the cap rate? What are expenses typically in a property like this and that and whatever? It's going to save you a ton of time and analysis by just having a couple of appraiser friends. And believe me, they don't have very many agents that befriend them. More often than not, they feel like there's this adversarial relationship, between them and you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Get to know them, befriend them. They're not going to give you, they're going to only give you an honest estimate of what they think the value is. You can't influence them that way. But on the other hand, they're a big help to you when you're doing income properties like this. Okay, we got an annual. If it's $10,000 per month, it's going to be $120,000. Okay, right? Okay, now the second thing you need to know about this income, and Dan has highlighted it here, is expenses. Because cap rates are always annual, and they're always net income, not gross income. They're what? Net income, meaning you have a gross amount of income, which was 10,000, but then they're giving you the expenses. And expenses included 5,000 in maintenance and 3,000 in tenant improvements. Okay. Now you're looking at this, and it tells you that the rent was 10,000 per month, but then it says expenses include 5,000 maintenance and 300 in tenant improvements. They're not going to give you monthly expenses usually. Okay. My gosh, if you had 10,000 per month in rent and 5,000 in maintenance, my God, the property's falling apart. You know, if it was 5,000 a month, the property's completely falling apart. So that doesn't make sense. These expenses, you know, reasonably would have to be annual, okay? Annual, which is good because you had to take that 10,000 and turn it into 120, correct? So 10,000, but you could do this two ways. You could take the expenses and add them up. So we had 5,310 improvements, and we could, that'd be 5,300 per year. Or you could take it off the 10,000 and then come up with $4,700 net monthly income and then multiply that by 12. See, many paths can lead to the right answer here. And it really doesn't matter which path you take. Calculation. I like to take it as it appears. So if it says 10,000 per month, immediately my mind says, oh my gosh, this is a cap rate problem. I've got to make that annual. And then I look at the 5 and the 3. Well, that's got to be annual. So I'll take the 120 and then take the 5,300 off that. Okay. But anyway. All right. So now we got an annual income of 5,600, 56,400, right? Right. All right. So we got our annual income minus or divided by the cap rate, which is 6%. And that gives us a value of $940,000. Okay. What are the tricks here? Net income, and income is also what? Annual. Helpful? Okay. Now, on this formula, I like to remember this as IRV, I-R-V, IRV. Income, I is for income, and of course it's annual. Cap, you know, rate is the R, and V is the value. So I go income divided by rate is equal to value. Okay, that's working it up. And now let's look at another one. Let's look at a different problem here. Well, that on your test, that would be answer number A, but I don't see the test answers on here. So I guess if you download the questions, they would be on there. Can we look at the next problem, please? P is a property that's making $33,000 net. Now, in annual income. Okay. Now, are we worried about expenses? No, they're already calculated out of this. Okay, because it said it was net and it said it was annual. Oh, that's great. That's going to be better. Okay. What we don't know is they want to sell the property, and they're asking the agent about where do you think we should price this? And of course, you're going to call even before you go meet with them, you're going to call your appraiser friend and say, look, I'm looking at a 20 unit building, or you know, whatever it is, a 10 unit building, and what's the cap rate on those now? It's in Murray. And they say, well, you know, I've done, I don't do a lot of those, but I've got a buddy here in the office that does. Let me call you back on that. He calls you back and he says, well, the cap rate is about here on something like that. See how important it would be to have some appraiser friends? You know, it's worth it. You know, I mean, heck, you can even take them to Arby's if you want to, you know, or Brio, I guess, if you had a coupon. Okay. Because you went out and you found a property that was about the same number of units in Murray. Okay. And this one sold for $1 million. Okay. And that one had a $40,000 annual net income. And so with that information, what could we figure out using the IRV formula? We could figure out the cap rate. See, in order to determine what this particular seller might get for his property that makes $33,000 net income annually, we need to know what the cap rate is. Well, so where do they come from? It's not mysterious. You know, it comes from similar properties that have already sold. And what was the cap rate on those? And so right now in our marketplace, you know, the cap rates are probably going to be a little low. But on the other hand, rents have come up, so yeah, maybe they're not horribly low, but let's work the problem. First thing we've got to work is we've got to work this the other property to find out what the cap rate is. So let's put the problem up. Got it? Okay, this is number 3. Okay. All right. So what we're going to find out here is we've got the annual income. Okay, looking at our formula, but the first one on the left, it gives the cap rate. We don't know what that is. So we divide the one above the line by the one below the line, or in this case, the one that's immediately below it, because we take our annual income of $40,000 and we divide it by $1 million, and that gives us a cap rate of 0.04. You have one with the numbers on it? Okay. See the income, 40,000, $1 million bucks, cap rate is 0.04 or 4%. Pretty low cap rate. If I'm an investor, do I want a higher cap rate or a lower cap rate? Do I want a higher rate of return or lower rate of return? If I have an income of $40,000, do I want to capitalize that income with a higher rate or a lower rate? Well, capitalizing it with a higher rate gives us a higher value. But this one, we know what it's sold for. It sold for $1 million bucks. So this particular property, if it was a recent sale and it was comparable, the appraiser would tell you, well, rates are a little low right now as far as investment goes. But on the other hand, you put your money in the bank, you don't even make 1%. Plus you have all the tax advantages of ownership as well. Plus the properties are increasing in value like crazy. And so, it's still probably a great investment for someone to park $1 million bucks. And that's why they bought it for $1 million bucks. Okay. But the cap rate was 4%. Now taking that cap rate, we can now insert that to find out what your seller's property might be worth. And so we know that their income is $33,000 net annually. And we know that properties like theirs are only getting a 4% rate of return for owners. So we can put that in the formula and divide the 33,000 by 0.04, and he should probably get somewhere around 825. Now, could there be other differences? Could maybe the one that sold for $1 million was more of a frame type building, and the one that he has is brick? And maybe you get a little bit more, but understand that, income property is sold based on their income. So to give you a good illustration, I had an investor that had a bar on the beach in California, and it was just a shack of a building, but it had a super high income. Of course, and part of that was the business, but the business owner was not the property owner. The property owner was leasing the property to the business owner. And so he was getting, a great rate of return, but it was worth it to the business owner because he was cash flowing that property. Now I know that's, you had the business component mixed into that, and people would get thirsty on the beach and there was nowhere else to get a beer. So, that was something else. But I'm just giving you an illustration that a crappy built building, and this one was pretty horrible, is falling down. He had to keep patching it up, but he was still getting a high rate of return just because of its location and whatnot. So there are a lot of factors that go into it, but this gives you about an 825, and it gives you kind of a track to run on. So you can tell them, well, based on what other sales have been, investors are requiring this kind of a rate of return. And therefore, we should get about 8.25 for it or thereabouts. I am shut down again. I keep getting these. What am I going to do here, Dan? Do I need to log back in or what? Dan, are you still getting me?
Yeah, I see ya.
Okay, how do I get back to my screen?
Let's see. How's that?
I lost the screen. Oh, shit. Go back here. Okay, sorry, folks. Hang with me a minute. We're having technical difficulties. Oh, I know what I need to do. Hit this. Hit this. Hit this. Hit this. Hit that. Hit this. All right, now I need to go full screen. How do I do that? All right, well, anyway, let's go along here. I've only got a little tiny screen to look at. How in the world did that happen?
You got it pulled up?
I can only see me on the screen. All right, F is building, let's see, we did cap rate. All right. Let's now look at area calculations. Okay, F's building a new home. They've laid out a foundation which is 30 yards by 15 yards. If their home will be 2 stories with a 10-volt vaulted ceiling, how many square feet of living space will they have? Okay, let's first read the question, which we have, and let's identify what we're looking for. And one of the ways to identify what we're looking for is to look at our answers. And the answers are A, 8,100 square feet, B, 900 square feet, C, 9,000 square feet, and D, 4,050 square feet. All right, all our answers are square feet. So looking back at our question again, we have yards by yards. So yards is different than feet. We're not looking for square yards, and we're certainly not looking for 3 dimensions cubic yards. So the first thing I would do is I would convert the yards to feet, and we know there's 3 feet in a yard, so it'd be 90 feet by 45 feet. Okay, you see how I got that? And their home will be 2 stories. 2 stories is important because we're going to double that figure, because there's going to be a first story and a second story. Now, what does a 10-foot vaulted ceiling have to do, if anything? Nothing. All our answers are in square feet, not cubic feet. So we don't need that other dimension. They just threw that in there to screw you up. Sometimes knowing what you don't need is just as important to know what you do need. So what we're looking at here now is we've got a formula for this. And our formula, quite frankly, is a length times width equals area. Let's take a look at that, Dan. Length times width equals area. Have we got that up now?
Yeah, so we've got length times width equals area on the left, and then we've got the calculation on the right.
Right, so we took those yards and we turned it into feet, like I mentioned earlier. So 30 yards, 90 feet, 15 yards, 45 feet. And we multiply length times width, and that gives us our area of 40,000 or 4,050 square feet. But it's not a single level, it's a 2-story. This is a big house, right? So we just do our calculation there, and that gives us 8,100 square feet. A little McMansion somewhere. Okay, so man, if that's on a nice piece of property, that that would that'd be nice. You've got a bigger heating bill. But anyway, so looking at our other answers, 900 square feet too little, 9,000 square feet too big, and D why do you think they put 40/50 on there? Because they put that on there because you forgot to take into consideration it's a 2-story. So here's where you work the math, but see, you got to understand what you're looking for. That's why you read the question. Okay, you read the question. Okay, got it? Cool. Now, another thing, when you're going to do this math test, if you are a really good computer savant, work your computer all the time, pull down calculators all the time in the computer and use them with your cursor and whatnot, then go ahead and use a computer calculator. But most of us may not do that all the time, or that may be a little foreign to you. So to feel more comfortable when you go in there, ask them for a calculator. They have a few calculators they'll give you. Now, they won't let you take your calculator into the test. They're afraid you have a crib sheet hidden in it somewhere or something with your formulas or whatever. And so they can't do that. You don't need a fancy calculator like one of these. This is this is an HP 21, and these are, or HP 12. These are great calculators. And I go to pawn shops once in a while and buy them all when I find them, and I'll buy 2 or 3. I wouldn't pay more than 25 or 30 bucks for it. But sometimes you get them for even less. But I got several of them lying around all the time, a couple in the car and one in my briefcase and whatever else. But these calculators use reverse Polish notation. It's a system you have to use. You don't need a fancy and this calculator has the Elwood tables embedded in it. So what this calculator will easy calculate payments and stuff. You don't need this kind of a fancy calculator. A cheap little calculator like, something like this, is all you need. I don't think I'd use a solar one. But it doesn't matter. They're not gonna let you take your calculator in the test anyway. But they have some, and you need to ask for one, and they'll lend you one, and then you need to give it back to them when you walk out of there. But a simple little calculator to do these simple calculations is all you need. And I would suggest if you're used to using a calculator and not doing it on the computer, it's going to bog you down. You're probably only going to see 8 math questions anyway, maybe 9. And you're going to see some questions that look like a math question, but they're not really a math question. They're more of these are some numbers, find it on a spreadsheet, or these are some numbers, find it on a Rep C, a contract. But our next problem is one where we're going to do some calculations again. And this is, once again, an area problem, lengths times width equals area. And here's a property lot. It's rectangular. It's 200 feet deep. Deep means from the front to the back. It's 200 feet deep. The total area of the property is 42,000 square feet. Okay. How many yards of frontage does the property have? Yards of frontage. Okay. So here you've got to do a couple of calculations. The first is you've got to find out what is the front feet of the property. And then they don't want front feet, they want yards. And of course there's 3 feet in a yard. So your yard figure is going to be smaller than your feet figure, a third of what the feet might be. So first, let's figure out what this rectangular lot, they told you is rectangular. So length times width. They gave us the width, which is 200 feet. Well, no, they gave us the depth, which is 200 feet. But we know it's 4,200 square feet total. So we divide the 4,200 feet by the 200, and that gives us the other dimension, which is 210 feet. Because 200 feet times 210 feet gives us the 4,200 square feet. Okay. But the 210 feet is feet. And you look at our answers, and our answers are all in yards. So we got one more calculation to make. 210 feet divided by 3, because that's a yardstick, okay, is going to give us 70 yards. And sure enough, that's answer D, 70 yards. Okay. Now, if it helps, they give you scratch paper. And if you want to draw a square, rectangular on there, a rectangle on there, and put 200 feet deep, and then, okay, well, okay. Now, the question has a frontage dimension to it. And frontage is how much of your property length is on the street. Okay, that's called the front foot or the frontage. Okay, so you knew the depth was 200 feet. We knew the frontage was 210 feet, but that's not our answer. Our answer was 70 yards because 3 divided into 210 gave us 70 yards. Okay. Occasionally you'll get a question that will ask you about not just the area, but you know, it might be the cubic feet of something. And to do that, that's that one more calculation. You have to add that third dimension into it, not just a flat surface, but that third dimension going up. All righty, let's go to number 7, which is H bought a property for $200,000 with a down payment of $30,000 and has been making payments to property for 10 years. Now, 10 years later, that's why they threw that 10 in twice. Maybe that's important. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Their property is appreciated in value by 30%. And their current loan balance is $117,000. What is their current loan to value ratio? Okay. All right. So the first thing we do is we identify what is, we read the question. Now we got to identify what we're looking for, which is the current loan to value. The current loan to value, would that really be, would the 10 years be important? No. Why? Well, because they give us the 2 other figures we need. They give us that the value is appreciated by 30%. Then their current loan balance is 117. 10 years is irrelevant. I mean, if this is a Utah property, they could have only owned it 2 years or 3 years and have it increased by 30% if it was in Sugar House or something, or one of the hot areas in town. So let's look at our formula, Dan. Okay, in our formula, we know they bought it for $200,000. That's important. And we know it went up how much in value? 30%. So today it's worth everything they paid for it, which is 100% plus 30%. Well, how much did they pay for it? 200,000. That's what they paid for it. The loan value the loan balance comes into importance in just a minute, but not right now. We want to know, what is it worth today? Well, it's worth everything they paid for it, 200 grand plus another 30%. So what we need to do is we need to take our $200,000 and multiply it by 130%. Why? Because they paid 200 for it. That's 100% what they paid for it. And it went up in value 30%. So the new value was 130% of what they paid for it. That's just rational thinking. So that means the new value is $260,000. Okay, or a 30% increase. So we take so now what becomes important on our loan to value ratio is we want to know what the loan amount is, and they gave us that figure. It's 117. So whether that they were paid that down to 117, and it really doesn't, we really don't know. We don't know what kind of a down payment they put. That's irrelevant. We don't really care, because they gave us the loan amount figured, in which was 117. So we take the 117, that's the current loan, and to come up with the loan to value ratio, we divide that by its current value, which you should be looking at that formula right now. And that gives our current loan to value ratio of 45%. Okay, now it's great property to get an Equiline loan on it if you need money for other investments and whatnot. But that gives us the amount of the loan divided by the loan, by the value of the current value of the house, gives us our ratio of 45%, which means you have, 55% equity in your property, right? You have more than half equity in your property. Okay. All righty. Questions on that one? Some of these you just have to reason out. In this one, we have to calculate the steps. The first step we had to calculate is what's the current value? Well, I told us it was everything they paid for it plus another 30%. So that's 130%. Multiply that by what they paid for it. Okay, that's where we came up for our 260, and they gave us the current loan balance, and then we divide the loan balance by what it's worth today, and we find out that lender's sitting pretty secure, aren't they? People that get in trouble, you lost your job or whatever, and you don't walk away from this one. You call your favorite realtor, and you haven't put that house on the market, and then you get some significant equity out of that, and we'll look at another one here. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is C is trying to qualify for a loan. And due to their current credit, they can only purchase using a conventional loan. Now, conventional loans are great. I mean, only purchase using a conventional loan. Usually conventionals are harder to get than FHAs and VAs, which are government assisted type financing. But that's what they want to do that. Okay, and so with the maximum of an 80% loan to value ratio. So they have to put 20% down. Okay. Well, they have $45,000 they could put down. So the question is, what is the maximum value of the property they can actually buy? Okay, so in this case, we're looking at a situation where if you could see the answers, one answer is $56,250. Well, and that isn't possibly correct. That's just a little over what they're putting down. That's a very high down payment. Another is 225. That's more reasonable. 285. So A and D are too small. For a 20% down payment of $45,000, neither one of those are going to work. So it's got to either be B or C. Okay. So let's figure this out. They're trying to qualify for a loan. The first thing that's really important and is you might identify the relative information is they can get an 80% loan to value ratio loan. And they can make a down payment of $45,000. So we need to look at our formula. Now, if we have a down payment divided by the ratio, that will give us the amount of home value that they can get, okay? So what we're looking at here is the down payment they have in cash is $45,000. So that goes at the top of the formula. I mean, if they're going to get an 80% loan, they have to put 20% down, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, they're going to put 20%, they're going to get an 80% loan to value loan. So they're going to put 20% down. So the down payment expressed as dollars is going to be 45,000. But the down payment expressed as a percentage is 20%. Which if you're going to divide by that, and without using your percent key, if you're going to just do a simple math division, we need to convert that 20% to a decimal equivalent, which will be 0.20. 20%, roll it over 2 spaces for the for the percentage sign. And that gives us 0.2, and that gives us a 225K. So a $225,000 house, that's answer B, would be the maximum house they could buy, assuming that they can get only an 80% loan to value, that they're going to get an 80% loan to value ratio loan, and they only have 45,000 to put down. Okay. Yeah, it's a nice down payment. You can get a condo. it's Salt Lake. Okay, maybe. Questions on that one? Okay. So those are 2 problems that we looked at that talk about loan to value ratio. And practically speaking, the lenders are going to be doing most of this work. But a lot of times in your discussion and getting these people to sign a buyer's agreement with you, it's good if you could do these calculations for them. Well, we only have 40,000, and a lender said we can get an 80% loan. Okay, great. So you could buy a $225,000 property. Okay. And maybe you could, do some other creative things to make that happen, but that's way beyond the real estate test. Okay. Maybe you do a buy down so they can get a better, bigger loan or whatever. Okay. Let's look at some percentage problems. And percentage problems, this is either gain or losses. I mean, we had a certain percentage gain and we had a certain percentage loss. And to do this, we have an investor that purchased a fourplex for $550,000. And that's about what they're going for here in our market. So it's a pretty realistic question here. And they're buying a fourplex 550. They might have to pay $500-600 now, but anyway, but that's pretty good. Depends on where it is and what the rents are, of course. They want to sell it as soon as they realize a 20% gain. So what price do they hope to sell a property for? Okay, if they, you know, the answers to this question are 570, 650, 660, and 720. Okay, well, they want a 20% gain. So if they are paying 550, you want a 20% gain at what price? So the factors are important in this is what they paid for it. They want a 20% gain, and they're asking you in order to get our 20% gain, which would be gross. You know, I mean, you're going to have expenses of sale, including your commission. But this is not that complicated of a question, so we don't have to worry about that. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a gain, old value divided by the old value, give us our gain or loss percentage. And we're going to have to invert this a little bit because the percentage gain they want to have is 20%. Well, the decimal equivalent of 20%, once again, is 0.20. Or you can leave the zero out if you want to, be 0.2. The old value is 550. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take, to figure out the gain they want, we're going to take the 550 and multiply that by the 2%, or we're going to multiply 2% by 550, and that'll give us 100. They want to make 110 grand on this thing. In other words, if they wanted to go up 20%, a 20% increase would give us 110,000 over the 550 they paid, 550,000 they paid for it. So once again, real simple, they paid 550, they want 110 gain. So they're going to have to be hitting in about the 660 range, or exactly 650 if they want to have a gross gain of 20%, which is answer C. Okay. Answer A, 570, wouldn't give them 20%. B wouldn't give them 20%. And answer D is way over 20% if they could get as high as 720. So, you know, kind of an interesting question, but not too bad. You know, just kind of reason it out. Well, let me see. I want to make 20%. Well, so it's going to be higher than 550, right? Then you look at the answers, 570, that's way too low. That means you only made 20 grand. You know, that's not a 20% gain. 20% of what we paid for is $110,000. Add that to the 550 and we come up with 660. The best way to do these math problems is to, you know, take some of our practice math questions and work some. And if you get stuck, give us a call and we'll work it with you. But you're just going to have to work some. Now, a lot of you are getting bored to death. I mean, you've had calculus classes and algebra classes and trigonometry classes, and you know, this is no challenge for you. Well, then quit worrying about it. You're going to be just fine. Others of you, well, you got a problem. You know, I mean, we're probably not going to turn you into a math aficionado with our short 120-hour course, which is mostly spent on terms and other real estate issues. But that's okay, because the test has, like I said, about 8 questions. And here's another math problem for you. The math questions are primarily going to be in the national portion of the test, which is 80 questions. And you need a 70% in order to pass. So that means you could miss 30 questions out of 80. So how many questions could you miss and still pass the exam? And we're doing percentage questions now. This is a good time to do this. Well, if you have 80 questions and you only need a 70% to pass, a 30% failure rate on you know, or misanswered questions, you know, 3 times 8 would be 24. You can miss 24 questions and still pass the exam. If only 8 are going to be math, you could miss every math problem and still be fine. But I don't want you to do that, because the math questions, if you can conquer this, which you can, you know, because it's really arithmetic. It's learning how to set it up. And remember, you need to read the question. I recommend you read every test question twice. And then you identify what you're looking for. What is the relative information? Calculate the step, and then highlight your final answer. Okay. Okay. So let's look at another one now. Let's look at number 10. We have only 3 more to do. Okay. A homeowner wants to move to a new city. We have a lot of homeowners that want to do that right now. And they know that they need a down payment of $80,000 to purchase the house they want. They currently owe $115,000 on their current mortgage. If a real estate agent wants to help them sell their house and make a 5% commission, what will the sales price of the home need to be for the owner to receive enough for their down payment on the new home? Okay. So what we've got here is we've got to look at the question again, and what are the relevant factors? What are we looking for? We want the sales price that would net them enough, at least $80,000. Okay. And this is a simplistic question. There's other things to look at here in the real world, but we don't have to look at it here. We only have to deal with what they gave us. We don't have to deal with prepayment penalties, second mortgages. They just deal with what they gave us. So the 215 is important. They got to pay off that old mortgage, right? Your 5% commission is important. Okay. And the $80,000 they want is important. So of the important information they gave us, 80,000 is a number, right? 215 is a number, but the 5% is a percentage. Okay. So let's look at our formula. We've got to add in the 80,000 to the 215, and that'll give us 295. Okay, that just makes sense. In other words, the 80,000 they want to, the gross net that they want to get, and the 215 is what they owe. They got to pay that off when they sell it, and the figure we need will be 100% of something. Okay, but unfortunately, it's hard to add a 5% into those just arithmetic numbers, 80,000 to 15. But we have to add our commission in. But let's reason this out. Okay, if all they want is 100% and our commission is going to be 5%, then we need to look for the reciprocal. The reciprocal is 95%. Which means the 80,000 plus the 215 is 295. You see where that came from? They gave you those figures. What percentage of the whole will that 295 be? Well, if your commission is going to be 5%, the whole is 100%. So that $295,000 has got to be 95%, correct? So 295 is the same thing as 95%. Okay. It's what's left over after your 5% commission. Another way of looking at that. So to find out what the number is, then we divide the 295 by the 300 by the 95%, which gives us our correct answer of 310,527. So I'd say we probably better list your house for about 311,000 or maybe 310,900 or something. Give us a little negotiating room. Of course, in this market, if you're listing it for 310 and 900, you're probably going to get offers about 315 anyway. So they're probably going to be fine. Okay. Okay. It's where they're throwing you off on this is they're giving you a percentage number and then you're giving you just numbers. Okay. So just reason it out. If you add the 80 to the 215, that's going to give you only 95% because you want 5% for your commission. So to find out what the number is, that number would be the 95%. You divide the number by the percentage it represents, which is 95%, and that gives you the gross number, including your 5%. So pretty cool, huh? Okay. Now, the last two we're going to look at are rate, principal, and interest, tax, insurance, payment type questions, okay? And number 11 says a buyer has a new 40-year loan on their home with the total amount of $480,000 with a 4% interest rate. The taxes are $2,100. Of course, that's a year. And they're currently paying $1,500, which is also a year, in insurance. What will their balance be after their first payment of $2,500? Okay. Now we have to assume, because they're giving us all this information, that payment is PITI. PITI means principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay. Now, This will only work for the first payment because that principal balance goes down. It's amortized. There's a little bit that goes against the loan every time you make a payment. And in the early payments, that's not a lot. But as the loan proceeds through the 30 years or the 15 years, that curve starts to flatten out. And what happens is more of that $2,500 payment, which will stay the same. A fully amortized loan is a loan that has equal periodic payments over the life of the loan. And so with this $2,500 payment, with that, of course, are taxes and insurance. So let's kind of figure this out. What are important numbers here? Well, the 480 is important because that's what the loan value was. The 4% is important, okay? The taxes and the insurance is another thing we need to look at as well. So what we have is, let's break that payment down to PITI. We have a monthly payment plus mortgage, plus a monthly interest and monthly taxes gives us a month, gives us our monthly, plus monthly insurance gets our total monthly payment. So let's look at some more math on this one, okay? First of all, the 2,100 needs to be divided by 12. Why? Because the 2,100 is an annual tax fee. So how much of that $2,500 payment was for the tax impound account? Well, 2,100 bucks divided by 12 is $175. So our total payment was 2,500 minus 175 in taxes. Now let's look at the insurance. That was 1,500 per year divided by 12 gives us $125. So let's take that out, okay? So now we need to know how much of that $2,500 was interest. Well, they gave us the loan amount, which was $480,000, and they gave us the percentage rate, which was 4%. So 4% times that loan amount of $480,000 gives us an annual interest of $19,200, which we divide by 12 again, because we want a monthly interest payment. And that gives a monthly interest payment of $1,600. So we take the 2,500, we take off for the taxes, 175, for the insurance, 125, and for the interest payment, 1,600. And that gave us $600 going to principal reduction. So out of a $2,500 payment, we had a $600 principal amount, which means that after that was deducted from our original loan balance of $480,000, take off 600 bucks. That means our loan principal amount after that first payment would be $479,400 bucks. So it's going to be reduced by from $480,000. It's going to be reduced by $600. Okay. Okay. And that's a lot of math, but it's easy math, because, we're looking at a monthly payment. Now, this will only work if they gave you the beginning principal balance, which they did. This is the first payment. Okay. And our last question for the night is a homeowner has a monthly payment of $1,500 bucks. Their next payment includes $1,100 in interest on a 5% loan. So what is their loan balance? What's the balance of the loan? Okay. Well, let me see. They got a monthly payment of $1,500, but that's they're alluding to that's a PITI payment. Most payments are PITI. In order to avoid paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on a monthly payment, you got to put down a significant amount of money. Most people put down less than 20% on a lot of loans, and so they're going to require that you pay impounds in. If you're putting down 50% or something, they'll probably let you pay your own taxes and insurance, and all you will be paying is a PI payment. Okay, so just give you a little background. Okay, so what would their balance be after the first $2,500 payment? Well, out of that $2,500 payment, we had, we're looking at the month paying $1,500. Well, that's not what we need to know. We need to know that that next payment includes $1,100 in interest on a 5% loan. So what is their loan balance? Well, if this 5% is an annual interest rate, so we take that the interest payment of $1,100 because they gave you that. Next payment includes $1,100 in interest. We take that $1,100 and we annualize it, you know, times 12 months. So the annual would be $13,200. And then so we can put that in our formula now, rate, you know, rate times principal equals our loan amount. So what we have here is our interest payment of $1,320. We divide that by 0.05, which is 5% decimal equivalent. Our loan balance was $264,000. Okay, cool. Now, we have some video math problems, our video math classes, where they'll take you through and they'll work these problems like we have here tonight. Again, don't fear the math. If you need math help, take the extra classes and work a few of these problems. But just rationally looking at it, reading the question, read it twice. Identify what you're looking for. Okay, look down at the answers. Okay, they want it in feet, not yards, or they want it in cubic feet, not, you know, not just square feet. Whatever you're looking for, it'll give you a hint there. And then identify the relative information. Throw out the stuff that you don't really need, and then calculate each step. And then calculate each step, and then grab your right answer. Choose it. Feel confident with it. Think it through. Make sure you did all the final steps, and then forget about it. Go on to the next question. Okay. Do not overstress. Do the best you can, remembering that you know that if you're great at math, you're going to wish there was more math problems because they're easy for you to do. If you're mediocre, you're going to be fine. And if you're a horrible math person, we probably won't change that. But if we can get you through at least half the math, 4 or 5 questions or so, you're still going to be fine. Got it? Well, thanks for being with us tonight. I hope it was helpful for you. Please reach out if we can be of help. We're anxious and willing to do that. We want you to be successful in this. We want you to pass the first time. We don't want you to screw up our pass rate, which is phenomenally high. In some months, even over 100, some months being 100%. I was going to say over 100%, but it's hard to get there. Okay. Appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you for our putting this together so that our students will pass the exam the first time and have a great career in real estate. Appreciate you. Good night.